I did take 75 questions, I think I did 75 questions in like 45 minutes. Like, I finished really fast. But when I sat down to take the exam, I felt like just this relief of anxiety because it was literally the same thing as UWorld. I felt like I was taking just another UWorld assessment in my house, relaxed. And I just felt like the questions were so much easier than UWorld. And I know a lot of people might think differently because obviously every person is going to have a different experience. But I think that I prepared myself so much that every question was just so basic compared to the UWorld questions I was doing. So I felt really prepared going into it. I felt pretty good like throughout the whole exam. When I got to question 74, I told myself, like, this is it. If question 75 is my last question, like, that means I passed. Like, I somehow knew, like, I felt like I was doing good. And so I felt like, okay, like, if I end on 75 questions, like, I pass. Like, I just know it. So the 75th question for me was a drag and drop. Took it, and I like took a deep breath, and I pressed next, and the exam like shuts off. Like, I'm done. So at that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I was really happy, but also like that part of me, that negativity kind of kicked in, which that's why you just have to trust in yourself, because I was such a negative Sally, like, you know, like just a negative person, and was like, I could be that person who just failed so badly in 75 questions, and the computer thinks like she has no hope, like this is it for her, like failed, you know, like that negativity kind of just like reigned over me. And even though I knew like I passed, like something in me knew I passed, like I had that negativity that just made me feel like I failed. And if that happens to you, that's like totally normal, because honestly, everyone thinks they failed coming out of the NCLEX, and every person I talk to has said like, I might have failed, because it's the unknown. Like, you think of the worst possible scenario before the best possible scenario, and that's just a natural human being instinct. Like, that's just who we are. We steer more towards like the negativity and how much more impactful that is than the positivity of things. So it's so like, it's normal to feel like you failed. But I just want to point out, like, something that gave me encouragement is knowing that there's like a 93% pass rate in the state of United States. Like, in this country, 93% of people who take the NCLEX for the first time pass. That's like a huge percentage, right? So like, I kept telling myself that. I'm like, I'm gonna be within the 93%, like there's no way. So I just kept telling myself that. And so right after NCLEX, I was that person who did the Pearson View trick. I was the first person, mind you, to take the NCLEX, I believe, from my cohort, from my nursing cohort. So everything was new to me. I didn't have anyone to go for like advice. So I just kind of did things the way I felt like was the most, that was the best way to do it at that time. And honestly, I think I did a pretty good job being like new to everything. However, I did do the Pearson View trick, and I know a lot of people are against it, some aren't. Like, I know when we had our instructor, they were like, do it at your own like will, because like, what if they charge you kind of thing and they don't refund you. But I followed this like web link, and they basically said like, you have to use all of your correct information except for the expiration date. You're gonna change slightly. And if you pass, it's not going to let you like go further. It's going to say like, you have already scheduled this exam, like blah, 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 and you can't like take it. Like basically you can't schedule another exam at this time. And that's like a passing pop-up. That's a good pop-up, they say. The bad pop-up is if they were to take you to the actual like charge site to charge your credit card. So I did it. I got the good pop-up. I think like after an hour of taking my exam, I got the good pop-up, and that kind of gave me this like relief. But then I was like, okay, like I'm gonna check again in a couple hours just to make sure it didn't change, because it's a computer system. Like, I don't know, like I was crazy. So I did check it again, and I got the good pop-up again. And after that, I think I checked it like 6 more times. Like I was anxiety, like. So every single time I got the good pop-up, that's kind of when I realized like, okay, I think I passed, but I'm not gonna say anything. So 48 hours later, I signed back into my Pearson VUE thing, and it said that I could pay to get my unofficial results. So I paid, I think like $8, and they told me I passed. So I was really excited. I found out on Labor Day that I passed, and it was just really nice to be able to spend the day with Daniel. And I wasn't able to go back home for Labor Day. However, I was able to kind of share in that moment with my family, just by video chatting them and telling them I passed. I cried a little because I felt like this sort of relief. I was really stressed, guys. I had a job lined up in October that basically relied on me passing the NCLEX. I'm a broke student, not even a student anymore, a broke post-grad student, and had to pay like $450 to take the exam and UWORLD and all of that, like $450. Like I was nervous. I was thinking like, oh my gosh, if I don't pass this, I'm gonna have to pay more money, and then I'm gonna have to push my job. Like I was really stressed, and just knowing that my hard work paid off, it was just such a relief that I did cry. But I think all in all, like I wouldn't have done anything differently. I think that I studied a good amount. I know people who take it, like who study two weeks and take it, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like if you feel prepared in 2 weeks, like that's totally fine. Like everyone has like a different pace, a different way of studying, and a different way of preparing. However, like just keep in mind that there's a lot of information and you don't know what's going to be on that exam. Like for me, I felt prepared in everything else except for child development. Like those milestones, I did not know. And I was like, oh my gosh, like at this point, like I'm not gonna know it. So if a question comes out about it, like I'm just hoping it's just one. And it you know, and that's kind of how I went into it. But like if I was the unlucky person that ended up getting like 10 questions about milestones in development, like I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have passed. But I think I prepared myself enough to just be like, I prepared everything I could possibly do in the time I had. I basically reviewed everything except for this thing, so I'm really praying that I don't get a lot of questions on this particular topic. And with that mindset, I just took it. As far as questions go, I did get a couple select all that apply. I think I had like 15, 16 questions on that. And I had, I think, 2 drag and drops. I don't know, like I had a different, like a lot of variety of style of questions, but I will say, like, you know how people who say like, I had like 20 questions on mental health. Like, I think personally for me, like I can't pinpoint a subject that I had a lot of questions on. I think that what happens is like, if you don't know a question, they'll kind of keep testing you on that subject to kind of widen, like to give you more chances to like get it right, to see if you like are passing on that subject. So I don't know, like I felt like I had a lot of different like questions, a lot of versatile questions that tested me on nursing, and not just like I didn't have a ton of questions on like one subject. So I think it depends for the person, so I can't really comment on that. My biggest advice to anyone is do UWorld first off. I absolutely loved it. I love their rationales. I would just study off of that. If that's the only thing you have, like do that. Practice questions will help you understand on like how to answer questions and how to look at the questions from a nursing perspective. So I would highly recommend UWorld. And on top of that, I would highly recommend using some sort of comprehensive book, whether that be the Kaplan or ATI or Saunders, like whatever it may be, use some sort of comprehensive book to review kind of the major subjects that you'll see on the NCLEX, and give yourself enough time. Like don't schedule the exam 2 weeks out and give yourself only 2 weeks to study. Think of it as scheduling it out like 4 or 5 weeks, maybe more close to like 4 weeks. And then after you study, if you feel like after 2 weeks, you're like, okay, I'm prepared, like I'm ready to take this, then you could always move it up. But you don't want to give yourself 2 weeks to study and then realize like, I'm not prepared. You'll only freak yourself out more. So those are kind of tips I would give you guys if you are planning on taking the NCLEX sometime soon. UWorld also has an exam that you could take, and they tell you how likely it is you are to pass the NCLEX. I did the 60-day plan, so I only had one exam that it came with to test if I would pass or not, how likely I would pass. And I took that kind of after like my 2 weeks of studying. I took it because for me, they tell you to take it a week before exam. But if you somehow get like highly unlikely to pass, then you don't want to know that a week before your exam. You want to know it at least 2 weeks out so you can do things differently to kind of get your percentage like higher. When I took that exam, thankfully I had a very high likely chance of passing. So I was really excited about that, and I realized like, okay, what I'm doing is like right. I'm doing like the right things. I'm on the right path. So it gave me more motivation to just continue studying the way I did. So I would suggest something like that as well. If it's not UWorld and you're using some like other tool, definitely try doing like a comprehensive assessment to figure out like where you're at. I also personally, when I was scheduling my exam, I got my ATT on, I believe it was August 29th. So 2 days before I scheduled my NCLEX, I got it. And at that moment, I was so nervous. My heart was beating. I was like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do? I don't want to wait 2 more weeks because I feel like that's actually going to do more damage if I wait 2 more weeks to take an exam. But am I prepared to take it on Saturday, like 2 days, at like 2 days later? Am I ready? So the way I distinguish if I was ready or not was I told myself I'm going to do a 75 question UWorld like test bank or whatever. And if I get over a 60% correct, I will take it. I will take it this Saturday. So that's what I did. I did a 75 question test bank on UWorld, and I think I ended up getting like a 67% correct. So that kind of gave me the confidence to be like, okay, Sora, like you're ready to take it, let's just do it. And so I scheduled it for Saturday and I took it. So I'm telling you guys, like you just never know when you're gonna take it, you never know when you're gonna feel ready. At a certain point, you're going to feel this sort of kind of like moment where you're like, I'm so sick of studying, I'm so done, I just want to take it. And when you get to that point, I feel like that's a good point to kind of tell yourself and kind of visualize yourself and be like, did I study everything I could possibly study? And if the answer is yes, then move on to the next question, which is, did I prepare everything? Do I know everything that I studied? And if that's yes, then I feel like the next point is you're ready. You're ready to take the exam. So hopefully my little story time with my NCLEX, as well as some of my tips and tricks for the NCLEX, will help you guys do a lot of acronyms. I remember like just using all the acronyms that I learned or memorized, like using that during the NCLEX. So do a lot of acronyms, try to condense that material so that you can actually like have ways to figure out the answer during the NCLEX. And I know you guys are going to do great. Just trust in yourself, have a lot of positivity, try to relax even though it's hard, try to do some stuff for yourself. Don't 24/7 study, take breaks, watch Netflix, do fun things, and trust me guys, you will get there and you will pass. So I hope you really enjoyed this video. Please comment down below if you have any other videos you would like me to make for you guys, and I really am looking forward to growing my channel and having some future nurses follow me on this great endeavor of mine. So I will see you guys next time, and I hope to see you in the next video.